and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. So hello there and welcome to this galactic update, and it's almost another free course from me. Wow, what a bunch. So in this edition I want to talk about the multidimensional nature of a mission. And when I say mission, this specifically relates to all the individuals, volunteer souls, starborn people, people who are here on this planet of something greater than just learning about personal living, building up their personal, living dynamics through which they're actually learning to, walk the path of soul evolution. So in a sense, when we're going to talk about mission today, this will refer to people who are operating multidimensionally. I know that it's a popular term now to use, especially in the New Age movement, to say things like we are multidimensional beings, right? The multidimensionality is the reality of this convoluted universe, or how to say. So this reality that we somehow at this human level perceive to be something is actually much more. So the deeper we start to go into the nature of this convolution and the reality as it can be perceived from many different angles, we start to experience ourselves more and more multidimensionally. There are souls on this planet Earth at this time who are in many ways completely operational multidimensional beings, and yet there are souls who are not yet at the template of existing as a multidimensional being, although this of course is the seed of life, of potentiality for every evolving soul in creation. So that's the first thing I want to say. So when I will talk about this in terms of mission and specifically galactic missions, I want to say that this refers to people who are already functioning completely in a multidimensional sense. That means your physical body, might be here, and as I'm sitting now on this beautiful queen chair couch here, there are aspects of me that coexist, so these aspects are consciously participating, as well as this physical body that's perceived as just the physical. It's truly a conglomerate. It's a union of many worlds within worlds and realities within realities. So the more multidimensional we are in nature, because even that in its sense starts to expand, because we can say multidimensional and we can say yes, to what degree? So it is very important for each being to, again, assess where they are, to understand themselves, that they of course are a multidimensional being, but they will start to explore and work or serve within those levels that they themselves are almost naturally called to or naturally belonging to. So again, I want to refer to you one of my latest mini audiobooks, which is on the training, the cosmic training for volunteer souls, because it explains the different levels that each being, once it is assigned through their natural evolution to start the journey of volunteering, which means using our own energy, using our essence at the benefit of the whole. Because as you can see and look around this planet and this world, there's the majority of the people who are living only for themselves, their personal reality, and a lot of times they will be very narrow focused or narrow minded, even with their day-to-day actions. They won't always think about how their actions influence other people, other life forms, the planet itself, because they are not yet expanded into the nature of multidimensionality. That begins with seeing everything as one. And seeing the potential that everything is one, you start opening up to possibilities that will present themselves to you. The more you're willing to go, the more you're, able to open up, the more you will receive, the more you will expand. So this, in a way, is the basic training and the understanding that you, as a being who is here as a multidimensional template worker, you actually coexist and you are performing many different things at many different levels. Some of these levels bleed through this reality because they are a part of what's important for this planet, for this reality, and some of these don't. They, of course, coincide because in truth, all realities are one, but they're not necessarily coming through your conscious awareness. Perhaps in time, through your evolution, if it's something that's meant to, through the blending and merging of the timelines come together, that would come into your attention, and sometimes perhaps it wouldn't. It wouldn't be a part of your conscious reality and mission in this current life that you are living within your own purpose. So the first thing I want to say is, what is actually our core purpose, right? Because the purpose and mission is not actually the same thing. And I've explained to you in one of my past videos. Just go back and browse through. I think it was last summer when I spoke about the difference between the core purpose, the mission, and the different divine assignments we have within that. The core purpose is the very essence of who you are. It is what makes you vibrate the way you do. It is the essence that on the core creation level, there is no one like you, and there will never be someone like you, or the essence that can be repeated in the multidimensional and multiversal sense of this nature. What this means is that your unique energetic pattern through the essence level, that you are birthing yourself into this multiple levels of existence while you're exploring, as of course a cosmic traveler, you, in a way, that part of you is always essential. That means at the core level, it always is what it is. So that essence directs or navigates the nature of who you are. It is the essence emanating or penetrating through you. I can give you one example. Sometimes people look at my pictures, and I post a lot of pictures sometimes for myself and my journeys, because these pictures are like energetic signatures that go out. And some people who are very open receive those signatures, and they will have a direct response. And sometimes they tell me what they receive when they see an image I post. And a lot of times I'm laughing because on Instagram, I'm posting pictures of different oracles and things in nature, and then myself sometimes as well. And when I post pictures of myself, they have the most views or likes. And sometimes I'm like, what? I'm puzzled by this phenomena. But in a way, the essence of who you are speaks louder than, if you're working with things that are not as organic as you are as a being. Like you work with oracles. Oracles are creations, extensions of something someone made, but nothing is as organic as your essence. So this is what I wanted to present here and give you a little bit of the example what this means. And sometimes people will tell me things like, everything penetrates through you, like you always emanate this essence, and it comes out through every one of your pictures. And these people are more open or more activated, and they can read energy vibrationally because they view life through vibration, not just through their physical expression. So people who see only on the physical level might say, wow, that's a nice girl, or that's a nice man, or things like that. But it's not about that. It's the essence coming through. So at the core level, this essence was created within a variation of creation, which always travels a certain way. The way that essence of how it's driven through the natural propulsion of life, through life force, is as organic as it can be through this core essence. So the nature, when you come into any sort of embodiment or you're exploring any type of realm, that essence remains. So that purpose in life, when we talk about multidimensionality, is the essence that comes through your core. A lot of people now talk about what's my mission or what's my life purpose, and they view it like what they're supposed to do. And I won't go into that because I've spoken about this many times before, and it was just the basics, beginner level. This is going deeper today, okay? So we're not going to go through the basics. If you're still new or you're being puzzled by what I'm about to share, go back, see those videos. They're specifically called, I think, the difference between the life purpose, mission, and divine assignment. So anyway, the core purpose is that which, like I said, it's like the very foundation of who you are. So when you walk on this planet, that vibration is coming together with every other aspect of life, and it's already altering the structure of every vibration that exists outside of you, because in truth, nothing exists outside of us. It's just when we're physically incarnate, that's how we experience, and that's how life is being experienced. So you are actually corresponding with that. That corresponds with you. There's a mutual communion or connection, and new vibrational patterns are being born through that. So at the very level of the core essence or the core purpose is our vibrational emanation. That, of course, when more and more of you comes through, and if you don't know what that means, watch the first free video course where I've talked about who are and what are the differences between volunteer souls, star seeds, starborn people, right, and luminaries. So for all of these beings, the main truth remains that our essence does not come into our physical form all at once, because in most cases it's very advanced for the nature of evolution on this planet. So it's coming in stages in its natural development. So that kind of thing is in common for all of us, whatever our missions will be. But at the core, this essence, this vibrational attunement is coming through us, regardless if you are walking in the woods, if you're talking to people, or you're just staying home in bed. You are a vibrational emanation. So in my instance, in my example, the very nature at the core level, I would say my life purpose is to be a creation pillar that I am. And you can read more about that on my page, Serapina Light. There's all the information. It's all described. It's all about me. But again, this video is not about me. When I give examples, is to present something that maybe you will have a correlation with, and something will spark up the aha, oh yeah, that's what it's happening for me. So when I share about me, it's truly not about me, but it's a sharing through something that is also experienced, not just theory, which it's one thing. The experience is something very organic and lived, and it bursts forth that wisdom, which is more it's more primal. Okay, so what is a multidimensional mission? Let's start at the very beginning. And again, I want to remind you here that there are a lot of multidimensional tools on my page, and you can go to the multidimensional mastery section, okay? And there's courses and there's things, and if you're still new at this and you feel you're just about opening up to this, because one thing is to read about the sentence, we are multidimensional beings. There is a totally different thing, you becoming a fully operational multidimensional being, functioning on all those levels simultaneously while constantly opening up and activating new levels. Those of you who are either already operational on a fully galactic level, or you are existing in many different dimensions as a being, you can simultaneously it's like your energy is there, you can project your energy, and it's like a mutual exchange, and you can bring it forth in this dimension, in this current experience. You are definitely a part of having a being who has a multidimensional mission, which means you are not here having a specific job or having your own business or doing something and you say, well, that's my life's mission. Perhaps it is a part of your current divine assignment, but the mission is one, and yet it's many things. So it's not one, right? Because our missions at the galactic level, now that we're expanding so much in our galactic human consciousness, we're feeling that there's so much going on that perhaps we weren't aware of before. And when we expand in those parallel versions of who we are, so it's basically just opening up to more and more, there's so much coming through, and we're becoming more aware of that. But at the same time, we're also here to anchor that awareness on Earth. And why is this important? We're going to talk about later about divine assignments and you having many, and with each opening to a new layer, they will be more, in a way, more convoluted. They will be, in essence, more expanded, but not just expanded in this current reality, but multidimensionally. Okay, so a multidimensional mission is, in a way, how to explain this, it's that in parallel you are doing very many things. So you could not associate yourself with an artist. You might do art, but you feel in your heart, I'm not an artist. You might do coaching sessions, or you might help people in counseling ways, but you don't perceive yourself as a counselor. You might do nature healing work, but you don't feel you're a healer. So for any one of you who has kind of like challenges of placing yourself here or there or anywhere, it's not because you lack identity, but because your identity is not linear, it's not fixed to something. And definitely, this is not about you not knowing who you are and still discovering yourself. This is about you fully knowing who you are. And at the same time, you're not just one thing. Do you understand? Why you are here, the reason for you being here is not one reason. It is multidimensional, and you have a multidimensional mission. So living in multidimensional operability and offering on this planet multidimensional service is now really expanding for galactics. And there's a lot of information being shared with humans now at this time through the galactics and us as the galactic humans. So watch my videos back when I talked about what does it mean to be a galactic human. And I want to also remind you about my course on the galactic human embodiment. If you feel, wow, there's something here really resonates with me, but you still feel kind of new at this, but you want to explore and expand in this research of yourself, it's not really anything scary. It's just you that is being aware of more of you. So I'm going to give you one example. Just today, we've talked about our lives prior to our awakening. And when I look back, I simply can't place and I can't certain things, I can't really assert them in a certain way before my awakening. And when I started to, really live the mission at its first stages. And I've spoken about the different stages of mission in that first video course, which is about volunteer souls, star seeds, and luminaries. So what this means is that prior to the awakening, there's almost like your multidimensional operational system was not fully intact. Why? Because the soul protects us. And when it's not our time yet, and we need to go through certain physical things before our awakening, because we need to build a platform for our sustenance here on earth to be anchored in third dimension and then expand from there. So we have to have certain maturity for that. Imagine someone waking up to their multidimensional existence, but they're not mature in their earthly form, so they can't process that. And that's why you have a lot of people who are diagnosed to be mentally ill, and they end up in these institutions because they can't handle that. They're suddenly becoming aware of all these multiple realities, but they're not firm and grounded and mature to really process and integrate that. So that's what happens. So this mechanism of almost like this fogginess, or if you want to place yourself, when you look back a few years ago, you say, was that even me? It feels weird. Or like the essence of who you are was at such a minimum rate that it's almost like you can't associate with it. There's things you remember, but you can't remember them so distinctly as you do now post awakening and in this integrated ascension where a lot of you already is. It's different. You can after your awakening and after your essence was fully coming here and starting the ensoulment process at the very very deep level, then you can remember and put things in a very it's like, yes, this has happened and that's where I went and that's what I was going through. But prior to that, it's almost like it's a little hazy. So there you have a very specific difference, because a fully multidimensional operational being is almost like your memory, your brain is just so expanded that your memory is just so good, it's intact, you don't forget things. I'm not talking about the little details that are not important, because those things would just take up space in your computer, which is your beautiful brain that is here to assist your mission. That's what it means. It doesn't mean you forget certain things because it's normal. They're not important, so why would you keep things in your computer that you don't want? You delete the files, right? So it's that kind of thing. It's like cleaning your room, because you're constantly needing to make the space for the new. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the more overall memory of your processes, of knowing your initiation. It's almost like you know it to such great detail, because at that time your multidimensional awareness started to really pour through and you started opening up to that template. So living in multidimensional operability and providing that kind of service really aligns you with the free spirit that you are. Instead of saying I'm a life coach, I am this, I am that, because that in a way are perhaps certain things you do. But you're going to see when we go and move into divine assignments, and I'm going to provide you with some of my own examples so you can reference and see perhaps something being sparked up in your own divine memory, is really important, because it's almost like you start to walk a whole different path and view of life, and seeing how things come in these cycles. And the most important thing to know is in terms of the galactic consciousness, because you live a spiral, right? And this in a way is a way of natural life force living, which is everything in your life is guided, and it has its beginning, it has its evolutionary stage, and it lasts until it needs to last, and it has its completion stage, and it will have to be a natural process, because in truth it is a natural process. So there has to be this complete trust that it's all how it needs to be, not like you're trying to advance somewhere but you keep getting these signs. Don't, rush it, because the multidimensional operability sometimes will take your energy. Let's say you're doing a project but you're not fully finishing, and you feel your energy is all of a sudden being sucked somewhere else, and you're like, what is this? And this is what is a part of this multidimensional mission. Is it's not linear. You might not say, I'm doing this project and I have to do it from A to Z, because that's what a normal human does. Yes, perhaps a human who is not operational in multidimensionality fully. And that means that there is going to be almost like, it's like you always coming up from that core, but you're going to be guided into different segments. And this multidimensional processing will become very natural for you as you start to accept that in your reality. And that's the reason that I'm doing this video. Is you who are resonating with this, you're probably aware of this, you know this, you're just remembering, and it makes it easier for you, because the mind sometimes is creating all this rejection and it doesn't understand. So with these videos I do as a part of my selfless service is to help you accept these things that in a way you already know, otherwise you wouldn't be so naturally in alignment with that. So it's a part of this pulse of life, right? Is like this, it's organic. But when you look at it, if you see a spiral, and within that spiral you have different fragments of creation, you have planets, you have solar systems, and it feels like, wow, it's all kind of mingled differently, and there's different regions of the universe and our galaxy, but in a way it's still it's still a part of that spiral. So you would say you don't go like this, right? Yes, the life pulse, it's always its natural sustenance is through this pulsation, which in a way is spiraling. It's the nature of this universal consciousness. And yet there's also an experience of dimensionality, which will make you feel, the different parts of this pulse. So when you translate that into your life, you will feel, that's how it feels like. I'm doing something, and I'm always moving in this. But while I'm moving, that aspect which is shared within the spiral might, go to different sections, and in a way, at the same time, they're all completing simultaneously. It's hard to use human language to transcribe this directly. You have to trust me. This is not an easy process. I do the best I can, but you will feel the difference between that which you feel you need to do and that which is being done through you, through this multidimensional nature that you're always connected to. So now I want to talk about the main mission fuel, right? So how do you know the mission is something you're deeply, deeply eager and excited about? And that's called the essence of passion. And passion is, when we say, wow, I'm passionate about this, I'm passionate about that. Yeah, on a personal level, you say, I have a passion for reading, I don't know, these kind of magazines, or a passion of going to the sea, or, hiking the mountains. I'm talking about the passion for service here. The kind of passion that is this fuel, this drive that makes you want to go a certain way, that you know you need to go. And it's that knowing without needing approval or confirmation, because it's that deep and it's that aligned, and it's like you're going in this forward moving line, and any obstacle, it doesn't matter, it transpires, when you rush to that enthusiastic force of this passion that drives you forward. So when I started doing these videos many years back, I was so passionate to get across the message to fellow pioneers of what are the, some of the tendencies of the new human. And that meant really looking deep within. Look at the shadow. Look at what we're doing. Look at all this haziness. Look at all this illusion. Look at all this new age. So as a part of my divine assignment back then was to really get across messages so that people could really look in the mirror and go, wait a minute, maybe that's not all that we think spirituality is about. And maybe a lot of my messages felt a little sharp, but at that time, that sharpness was needed because there's a lot of people who are living in a fog. And these people think that's all there is. I don't want to look deeper. That's all I know, and that's my reality. And it's okay. But you can't stay at a certain point because as a soul you're in constant motion, you're in constant movement, because that is the nature of creation. Otherwise you're not being your creative self. What you feel is you feel you are not yourself. So what is created is a lot of distortion, it's the lack of creative alignment, which is the lack of passion. So you see, this what we talk about now is so important to say. We're needing to be authentic, and at the core level that means really be authentic with that passion, which is the passion for this. And that's something that is yours in a way that is your natural divine rite of passage, which is something given to you to fulfill in this life. And you don't have to work hard for it in terms of making an effort, otherwise it wouldn't come about. It comes about. You are productive all the time. You are making an effort, but not in a way that it's an uphill battle. So you see, it's a mission is this natural something that is a part of your rite of passage. It is within the domain of your soul to achieve, but it's not a forceful kind of achievement. Okay, so that's one thing. So that passion, you will see, is the fuel that will get you to do everything you're doing, and it's natural. So the doubt that comes with it sometimes will go, I'm really passionate about that, but I'm worried about how money will come, how people will respond, how, I might feel when I come out of this comfort zone, or maybe share myself a little too much sometimes. All these things, when the passion factor is really aligned with the core, with that which we've talked about as the core of your purpose, which is the essence within you, and the rite of passage of your soul, it will be stronger than any obstacle that you, of course, just perceive as an obstacle, or any rejection or any type of resistance that sometimes the lower mind creates. So when the passion is this strong, your mission will be natural divine alignment, which means your DNA will start sparking up. Remember, DNA, divine natural alignment. That's what it means. So because of that, you will naturally and instantly start receiving more. So when this passion is moving out, you receive. And because of this constant state of giving and receiving, you are universally protected, which means you are given everything you need and require for the mission you're performing. That's why, in my life, I'm again sharing my own example. I was born to a very medium status family. We never had like super amount of money or anything like that. Nothing, right? But as I went through my life, because I always was aligned with where I needed to be, the force of life always took me through things, and I just accepted. And I was like, okay, I'm going. The passion was always so strong. The drive was really intense for me. And because of that, I was so authentic with where I needed to be, what I needed to do, that I always got what I needed. It wasn't always what I wanted all the time, but I was always somehow safe. That natural universal protection, that safety, because you are living the life you're meant to live. Okay, so when people perceive themselves as not abundant or poor, it's because they're poorly listening and really taking steps in that natural divine alignment. So, their DNA encoding their blueprint that needs to go out and move into, a certain kind of way. So that mission fuel that we know as passion, when it's stronger than anything else, you are in that natural divine alignment. Although when there are stages of your mission, and we've talked about stages before in terms of your beginner level, the median level, the more advanced level of your mission, but in this case, I'm going to talk about it more from the perspective of when you have a certain mission, right? And it's in development stage. What are some of the signs and ways of expression that belong to different cycles, different levels of the cycles, right, of this mission? That means cycles and waves of mission integration. So I've just made this tiny chart which shows the peaks, right, the ups and downs of this, what we would call the passion, which is the fuel. And that fuel, like I said, when it's a natural divine alignment, comes directly from life force infusion. And when life force moves through you, because you're in allowance state, that means you're not rejecting it, you're not resisting it, you are being fueled by life force itself. And if you want to learn more about how to become a complete conduit for life force so that your life is effortless because you are living fully through life force, you serve life force, you cultivate everything in your life through life force. So because abundance in its truest sense is the expression of this natural divine fuel comes through you as a physical conduit and being manifested on the level of life which you are living at this current, reality, which is the densest form, which in this current state are physical bodies. When this densest form can feel and experience the actualization that perhaps you feel your soul is already fulfilled. Yes, but you're still here on earth. Can you feel fulfilled physically as well? When that lowest quality expression can feel the highest attainment, when that precipitation of life force can reach that level, that is what is called the self-actualization from within. Now, self-realization again is something different because self-realization is not just in consideration of you and your life. A lot of people misplace that because self-realization is not just you realizing yourself. The word in itself is a paradox because self-realization is you fully realizing who you are in the whole, which means because you are that who in the whole, you cannot sustain yourself without the whole being a vital part of who you are, which means self-realization comes through selfless service to the whole. See? So the self-actualization that eventually leads to self-realization is that which again you will feel when you're living in that natural divine dharmic mission expression. Okay, so like I said, if you want to learn more about that, I have a course, Tantrika Life Force Mastery, which I've mentioned so many times before, and I'm being so repetitive, so but I need to mention it for people who perhaps are watching for the first time or so. So anyway, I want to talk about these cycles and waves of mission integration. So when this passion comes, which fuels something that we need to do from the level of um, just simply that being utilized on the earth plane at this time, something that's required of us. We will know because the feeling of passion will be there. When we want to force something, that passion, humans are very good with the mind, and a lot of times there can be a recreated experience of something we want because we think that's what we need to do, but it's an artificial feeling. So you might convince yourself very well in your mind this is something you need and where you need to be, but if it's not organic, this full life force infusion support will not flow. And that's why when people say they experience obstacles, they're not truly obstacles. It's a natural divine alignment telling you there is no alignment there. So do you see the paradox? Again, living through life force is a life of constant contemplation and observation because you're asserting yourself and you're seeing where there's flow or lack of flow. And that tells you everything about your life without you blaming it on external conditions, other people, how earth is, how life on earth is hard. All these things are excuses because we're not fully living a life realized through life force, which is complete spirit beingness in a way. Okay, so these aspects, right, that when we are, let's say, okay, we have gone into a natural divine alignment, we know this mission and we start living it, we start doing the steps, right, and we do the things. Let's say you're in a certain step, you're guided to create, I don't know, a web page or a blog or something, or do videos or something new. And when you are at the peak of this life force infusion that will, go through you to create this, earthly physical creation, you will eventually feel, it will be an upsurging of light, and eventually you will know, because all of us have felt this peak experience, is when you feel you're really in it. You're in it, and at that peak experience, when it's truly the peak, you're not thinking whether that will bring you money, whether that will bring you people or customers or followers or clients, whatever people call it. At that peak, is the peak of life force is all about putting that out there because it's natural, because it's what source through you wants. So it's your source self, it's your I am presence, it's that which is the deepest aspect of knowing. And at that way, in that peak, right, when you're feeling that peak, it's that drive. And at that point you are immortal, you are immovable, you are unstoppable, you are just able to do whatever, you know that you can do this, you can pull this through, and you're not thinking about, if you do have thoughts about, again, oh, but will that bring me this and that, then you're not at the peak. The peak is that feeling of this upsurgence of light that can move mountains through you. So then you're doing this, and perhaps, it's like climbing a mountain. And I've climbed many, many mountains, literally, and not just walking, but I'm literally climbing in them too. So there's this feeling just before coming to the peak, and it's like you're already exhausted, but there's this wave of energy moving through you, and when you see that ground of the peak, at the first few seconds, it's like, oh, I've arrived, and it's amazing. And at that time, you're not thinking about, oh, I'm here for the view. Those for a few seconds, you're not thinking about, okay, I'm going to see the view, and it's not because of a reason of that outcome. Okay, I'm trying to explain this peak experience because I'm just, I'm being shared, I'm being shown these examples. But it's a very natural feeling that you did it because the experience itself is a gift. The reward might come, which is the view, or you're seeing other peaks. Perhaps you meet someone there, you see a beautiful flower, I don't know, whatever. You see a Mary statue. um, but there is the experience itself that is the peak, and that's the peak of the experience. Everything else comes after. So when you push through, and at the peak, you might have an experience of being like, oh, I'm on the top of the world, and you're getting funds. Um, if you're working with people, there's people, they're coming and they're sharing with you. It feels like this flow. So the flow is at its optimum here. And we don't know how long we will stay at this optimum, because we don't, from our human perspective, have this bigger overseeing process of overseeing this mission part and this aspect of it, when it's how it's developing. So you just have to go with the flow. And there will come then a point in this experience of the whole when you come about, you feel like, oh, there's not like, it's not like such flight anymore. The enthusiasm wanes a bit, and eventually you come down into the valley. And a lot of people call this, well, when the passion is gone, right? The passion is not gone. And when we, again, if we want to compare the experience or the feeling when we're in the valley with the experience of the peak, forget about it, because these two are not to be compared. They're completely individual parts of this whole process. So the valley experience is that when you've taken all you've had, you've done everything, and now you're taking down into the valley, to, in a way, to integrate. So you could say, well, I was really activated here. And down in the valley, we integrate. Again, we can compare this with coming down from the mountain, and you were isolated, you were the hermit, the whole world was yours. And then you come down, and then there's people there again, and sometimes they're cranky and upset, and and there's external circumstances. Even just driving the car down and into the valley coming from the mountain is like, wow, I'm in this civilization world again. So this integration part might include, and it will include, you being more introverted sometimes, because it's like this essence of everything, you're actually surrendering to it, because a lot of people may get attached to this peak experience, and they want to keep recreating it because it's so good, because when we're attached to it, we recreate it again. Remember what I said before, from the mind. And the mind is very good at recreating things, because all it knows is this undeveloped, immature human mind is in this repetitive mode, and it likes to recreate from the past. But this is truly when it's the peak at the essence level. It's not the past, not the future. It's complete now. And it's that force is just doing its work because the work is amazing, because it's self-fulfilling, it's self-enriching, and it's serving the whole. So in this valley, the experience, like I said, can be compared. And sometimes at the valley experience, at the integration point, we will feel the waning of this passion. And sometimes the mind will go, wow, what's wrong with me? I've lost the enthusiasm for this. I used to do these beautiful paintings, or I did that, and I don't do it anymore. Why don't I do it anymore? Okay, again, we're going to come to the multidimensional part at the end. But here in this part is usually also for us to integrate. And sometimes if we were very busy and active at this stage, imagine if you were always at the peak, if you were always like this and drive. When I'm in this hyper mode, I can move mountains, and I can do in one day like 1,000 things. And I go like, how did I do that? When I look back. But I was at the peak experience. And perhaps, a few days, weeks, months later, when I'm in the valley experience, and things slow down, and you feel, oh my God, my services are not wanted. I'm not getting the financial, I don't know, rewards for this, or this give and take natural alignment, and this happens and that happens. is, again, when you are connected with the life force, which is the life force infusion, this natural fuel, this experience can't have your body always at this optimum. So at this level, we're resting, we're integrating, perhaps, in my work, I do a lot of this, this correspondence, and then I always don't have time to just sit down and write the book. I'm tired by the end of the day and I can't. So when things slow down, this is usually a phase when we can do that work, which is more introverted. So it's sometimes we're also working here at the Valley, we're building, in a way, a platform for something that will come next as that next wave, right? So when we look at the nature of mission would be all of these peaks and valleys, all of these waves all together. Within those, we have various divine assignments, and this is what we're going to talk about next. So divine assignments and completion, and knowing when an assignment ends. Sometimes people say, well, when the mission ends. I wouldn't call it like that, because the mission for those of us who are starborn is a continuation. It's, the mission ends when you're not here anymore. in my case, life purpose does not end, because your essence is immortal, it's eternal. So in a way, your life purpose never ends. You go out of this body somewhere else, and it's a continuation. But that mission where you're holding yourself at the physical form level, the mission completed itself. Perhaps there are certain examples where the mission is not yet complete and the body is already, going to another level. There has to be an adjustment or readjustment, or perhaps coming back. But at the level of being complete, it's complete. But divine assignments are those levels of the mission, these different ways that they do come to a certain completion. And I've given you one example when the passion, in a way, fades for something, and sometimes your mind will go, well, something's wrong. It's not wrong. It's just that your energy is being redirected at something you need now, at most. But not in all examples, because I told you from the multidimensional perspective point, you might not have finished something and energy is already being redirected. Why? This is something we're going to talk about next. This is the convoluted part. So here I drew two graphs, two spirals, right? So let's say I'm here now at this point. There's a point, and around this point I drew a spiral, right? Spiral goes around and around, and those points moving outwards are the energetic emanations you're currently putting out. So I'm at this point right now, coming from the position where I am now, what I'm doing, where's my focus. So we're talking about focus here. So the spiral is all of it, all the potentiality, and the dot within it is focus. I've heard a lot of people talking about that ascension has nothing to do with focus. And I've heard a lot of these examples. These beings were very much oriented only into the divine feminine energy. Complete polarity integration is divine masculine and feminine as one. So you could see that flow, that ebb and flow of life is the spiral. But the point within it is that focus point of light where, through that point of light, you're focusing where you need to be. If you've ever done reading about hypnotic regressions, you will see that when people come, to the other side, when they're in expanded consciousness mode and these different altered states, right, such as going in under a trance state or so, there a lot of times they're seeing a focus point of light, and that focus point of light will actually direct them where they need to go next. It's kind of similar, but you're doing this while you're holding a physical form. So in that mode, when something is not yet complete or finished, but you feel your energy suddenly goes somewhere else, what is happening is you're being redirected here. So in this other example I shown, this is the same point that was here, black dot. Now next to it I drew a red dot, which is a little tiny adjustment, but you see that tiny adjustment altered your emanation. Perhaps there was more information you needed, or something wasn't yet fully, or the timing wasn't right, but it's not yet complete. So from a sense or a point of multidimensionality, something you will come back to. But in a way, you don't even come back to, because this is not a past, future, it's not linear. So it's more like there's different spirals that go out, that emanate from the core. Okay, so again, I talk a lot about this on timelines in the Galactic Human Embodiment course. So this is the basic. So this adjustability, a lot of times it occurs also through high council meetings, right? What does this mean? in many cases, when a soul is not born of earth directly, when it's an star-born being, a being who is here on a specific assignment, but it's not evolving through their own soul as a part of the earthly evolution of souls, that being will have to have council meetings with their group, so their soul group or beings they know from these non-earthly or extra-dimensional levels. In these meetings, these adjustments or readjustments are taking place, and this a lot of times it happens in dream states, not always in dream states. It happens even when in your walking life, because our reality is not, we think, oh, I'm going in those spaces only when I'm sleeping and dreaming. No, that's when the body rests. But you don't have to sleep for you to experience those altered states. They are happening in parallel. So you are going here, and in these meetings these adjustments or readjustments are taking place. So that's why sometimes you might feel very called to something and the next day not anymore. It's because sometimes these what you would as an earth human, you would say these are interruptions. They're interrupting my flow, because you want it to go this way, you want it to be a fully straight line, and that's how it needs to happen. And then something happens, it blocks the flow. Well, you're not following the life force, because the flow is being blocked, and it's a feeling of resistance. If you function through life force, only a feeling of flow or resistance will tell you everything about your life. It is so simple. Okay, so go back to the topic. This What's happening here is that the point of emanation, right? This position where you're at needs to be a little adjusted. Perhaps there's more information coming through, and because you're operating at a greater level, which is planetary service, something we're talking, of course, about selfless service work here, whatever it is. I'm not talking about just living your personal life in reality and manifesting things for you so you can feel good about yourself. This is higher work level, okay? So at this advanced level, what's happening, there's these meetings happening that will alter the energy, even if it's just a little. During this meeting, you might receive an information which will kind of have an impact in your consciousness. You might not consciously remember the meeting, but you feel something shifted, and all of a sudden you feel, I'm not guided to do that anymore, but I still feel it's something, it's calling me. It's just not now. So I experienced a lot of that, because sometimes I had this project that I was assigned to do, and I've shared with my group, and I said, this is coming up soon, and the soon didn't come that soon as I thought, because there was readjustments happening simultaneously, and I had to learn my own way to understand this through my own experience. What does this mean? Okay, so when you experience that, it's not perhaps that there's a lack of flow and this project is not meant for you, you're not meant to finish it. It's just, it's finishing itself through you again in natural divine alignment, this course that is again fully driven through life force infusion. You have to allow it, but you will feel it. The more open and the more advanced your consciousness is, you will be conscious of it. So let's say the next day you're reading a book, new information comes in, you're like, oh, that's why didn't you do it, because it was lacking at the proper fullness of what needs to be shared here. Sometimes there's also connections and associations related with earth adjustment, something that because the collective is always shifting and responding, so your responses to the collective will shift because of those shifts. So that's why these meetings are constantly taking place for all those of you multidimensional mission workers, okay? And it's quite mind-boggling, but at the same time it's very exciting, because you're not here, and you're not interested in the mundane things, and even the manifestation world or whatever. You are here to experience this beauty of multi-operational consciousness that just is so naturally supportive and self-sustaining, and you're a part of it, and you're aware of it, and you're excited because it's becoming more conscious in your reality. So this was one example. So the reason for these, like I said, the meetings is because these missions are at the galactic level and at the level of the core planetary service. So this is like our true north, our true focus, which I've been writing here, right, is you're aligned with it. It doesn't mean now you've changed from the essence level. I'm talking about your position here and something you're working on, or a task. This is what's shifting, but the core, the true north alignment is always this direction. Is like you're walking this dharmic path. The mission. It's just there would be, let's say, a tiny little adjustment here, be shifted a little bit so the curve goes just a little bit differently, right? Because it's adjusting in relation to the whole time, right? So let's say, let's give one simple example. You'd be talking to someone, and then after talking to them, you have, oh, this idea, I didn't respond to them and this, but I also wanted to say this and that. Oh, but um, let's say you meet them the next day, or I don't know, you want to say that to them, but something in them is shifted. They're no longer open to what you wanted to say. And that shifts the overall conversation. Although you feel that that's what I wanted, but you see, it was adjusted. So you have to again adjust or readjust your response to the whole, because you're constantly assessing multidimensionally, not linearly. Okay, that's one example. So these galactic missions, planetary life servers, are always in constant readjustment that assesses the whole from the galactic level perspective. Okay, so the starborn beings, what a lot of us are doing, we're building templates. I've talked about this before. What this means is that your emanation, where you are, whatever you're doing, always goes into the whole. And people call this the book of life, the Akashic records, the book of records. Earth in itself has its own, every planet, every planetary system, and they exist as different logoses at different levels of creation. Okay, so what this means is that you are constantly assessing this is a part of this information, but when you are contributing with your own vibrational emanation, your own service, your own mission, that mission goes back into the whole. It brings new information, it brings new infusion of what perhaps was not there before. And this is why this is so important, because it's constantly rewriting it, it's constantly doing anew. So one of the example for building templates is that because Earth was so quarantined in a way, right, which means it went a certain way, there was not a lot of energetic influences at a specific time span of our planet. When there was enough light quotient raised, when the collective consciousness was ready, this call went out. And a lot of people say this is the call for these beings, extraterrestrials, star-seeded beings, voluntary souls. This call went out. And we all know the story, right? But what took place is that Earth itself, the consciousness, was ready for it. So that's when these, influences of the light started to come in. They started to come in through this divine intervention, which is a benevolent, a light, at the core level based intervention. What this meant was that before, Earth was very much going in the certain line, right? And we said, wow, Earth is moving again towards the destruction phase. Wow, it all looks like this. And even when you look a lot of, and when you read maybe a lot of older materials about this, there's a lot of prophecy about this. Why didn't it happen exactly that way? Because of this divine intervention, because of these higher influences that held mission at the multidimensional galactic level, there was an interception, there was an interceding, or how to say it, in inception in a way, coming through that, expanding this. It's like a dominant, it's like a predominant course set that started to expand the timelines. So I've talked in the first course about the star seeds and volunteer souls and luminaries, about their different missions, and how a lot of them bring the information from their home worlds, building templates here. And again, the information goes back to their home worlds because all the worlds are basically connected as one. There is the book of life of all lives and all planets and all systems. What this means is that with the inception, right, of these beings and this divine intervention came the different variables. So that gave many souls who were in this repetition of cycles, or that never completed the cycle of learning, more opportunities so they could, as souls, learn from that and evolve from that. Because you need a world to practice that on. It's like all the world is a stage, right? So you might be a good actor, but there's no stage for you to actually act, right? You are acting in your head. So these worlds are meant, there was also, as you know, a lot of worlds destroyed in many times in many timelines. So these worlds are meant for this completion. It's like a mission. A world itself has a mission, right? So because Gaia itself has a certain course, and that course is not, it wasn't anymore just seen as, now this is this linear course I'm set to go. And a lot of people said, well, this was a course set to failure because of so many negative influences and destruction happening on the planet. But because of this interception, there was a building of new templates that provided these new timelines to start emerging. So there could be a completion of these timelines. So let's say there was a memory somewhere, oh, we did this and that, or we destroyed this world here and there, and it was a memory in these records. With this higher light infusion, what we do is we bring enough light intel, which is light information at the intelligent life force level, that that system can self-regenerate, that there can be a renewal of that. So these old stories are not repeated anymore. So that renewal then will give a breath of fresh air, or a giving of life, a birthing of life to these beings who perhaps are recreating those experiences over and over again, so they could eventually lead that, have that completion and lead their lives in a new way. Okay, so that's something here to think about. And the presence, right, when we have our own mission here, and I'm going to talk about this multidimensionality through my own example next, the presence of why we're here, because of this, right, because each one of us builds these templates that somehow are vital to the nature of not just what's happening on this planet, but many different worlds of creation, because there's a unification happening in the whole of our galaxy, because even galaxies self-realize. That's the point here. So this information that's coming, the Earth was opening up to more information, so Earth itself can become multidimensional, right? Because the linear course of Earth was, we're going this way. Ooh, and it looks repetitive because we've destroyed 3 different civilizations before, and before that there were other worlds destroyed. Now what this brings forth, this light infusion, it brings new potential. So before that there has to be a erase and rewrite, so that this new potential can open up and expand. This means that our presence here on the planet, those of us who have this multidimensional work, might not always be for everyone, and it's not meant to include everything. So for me, I myself, I don't feel a part of certain things and scenarios that are happening on this planet because I'm not a part of that project. Remember, Earth, again, from the point of galactic history, has in parallel many different projects that were, it's almost like from the beginning, they were set out. When we don't see things as what was before, what was later, when we see them as simultaneous aspects, because at the level of everything through archetypes, we eventually come to the essence level. And that essence level, everything wants unity and polarity integration that occurs through different archetypes, right? That took place through different worlds of creation, different planetary systems. Here, what this means that our presence will not always be for all, that in a way this is an exclusive, there are exclusive projects. What this means is, and again, I will give you my example. I was shown even in a dream years ago, when this after my awakening started to happen, that I was a pure spirit, and I saw what was happening, and I saw beings as different beads, right? And I pulled them up. I was guided to pull them up, but not all of them stayed in my hand. This was, of course, symbolic. Many of them fell down the drain into this muddy, watery kind of, essence. What this showed me was that I have to understand that not everything is a part of what I'm here to lift up. And I've talked to you about the Illumin Project and the Atlantean experiment and the mission of souls who are now completing this, what they weren't able to complete before because the world, they knew it ended, because that civilization came basically to an end, basically a halt, because it's now recontinuing. But even different segments of the world, if you look at it, are exclusive. So, for example, at the very core level, I was shown that, and people talked about this before, that USA, United States of America, was chosen now at this time as a reenactment of the Atlantean project. It's just now happening in a different way. The key players are the same. The conditions, the era, things are different, but the energetics remains of what's the lesson to learn. So the timelines brought forth created opened a more bigger possibility for these worlds to achieve union. And we each as individuals have worlds within worlds. So my world within is not perhaps the same as your world. But when the world is unified and another world is unified, these worlds start to coexist in a natural, harmonious, balanced way. So that's the point here, this integration. So if the United States of America, which is a specific country, and that's why countries were created in truth, were as different projects, not to create border lines and, you know, say, oh, this is us, this is them, from the you know, very sometimes prejudiced kind of nature, but more in terms of this is this project, and that will be happening. Again, Europe has a different story and a different integration altogether if we look at it as a continent in terms of fulfilling its you know, reaching beyond this karmic cycles and fulfilling its own dharma. But in this period, it's happening the way it is. So the same thing happens with the groups of people, so the group of souls who are at a certain level. So when I'm here, and they told me this from the beginning, you're not here for everyone. Although, again, remember, at the core purpose level, the essence goes out into the whole. So from the core level, from our life purpose level, we are here for everything and everyone. Our energy goes and it reaches all. But from the mission level, the mission will not be for all. You know, that's why people come and they resonate with something and other people are like, what's this? It's not for them. They're not a part of that. And I have experiences with people who come, and sometimes they even work with me personally via sessions. These people are always somehow from this cycle. They're always a part of this Illumined project. And these are more advanced souls. And these souls just perhaps didn't have time to complete their physical ascension at that time, or their mission was yet incomplete if those beings were coming as showing other people, you know, at that time how to live as a higher, more advanced being, and they felt it wasn't complete, so they kept returning to earth in these incarnation processes. So what's very important here is to know that from a multidimensional perspective, you are, as an essence being, you are all. But physically, your body, you can't be with all, you can't solve all the earthly problems, you can't do all this and that. You are specific and focused, right? We've talked about it here, your focus, just the same way as you are that spiral. Okay, so that's very important to understand about the nature of creation. This the linear part and the focus is not even the same thing as being linear. It's just you're rooted into something very specific, and although that specific might change with these different tasks and assignments you're given, and you will recognize their completion, and you will recognize when there's just a withdrawal of life force happening. Okay, so now I want to say something about I've promised here to myself, to all of you probably, to give you just some of my own examples of what does it mean, this multidimensionality of different things you're included in from, you know, this perspective, this broader perspective, so you perhaps can have a greater something, you know, as a physical example to see. So let me go back to the beginning when I started my awakening. Like I said, the beginning, if you go to my messages and what I've been writing about, everything was about the light of truth. Everything I remember was about the light of illumination. Oh, I was so going into this core, right? My core essence, my core purpose. And I wrote all these articles, which later Ascension Pioneers page was actually deleted because those things will become a part of my work in my books. But my main core, what I was shown at that time, was to establish the foundational initiation point for souls who are ascending to understand what they need to work on in terms of their humanity, if they want to pass these initiations for self-mastery. So the light of truth evoked this path of mastery, while simultaneously I also addressed all of the aspects that are not really moving us to the path of light of truth, which can be a lot of haziness. I was addressing a lot of new age, you know, people just putting things in black and white and these boxes, and they're not walking this higher spiritual path and truth and this devotion to this truly purely spirit based from within yourself. And at that time, that was my basics. When I established that, and I did also my first 7 mastery courses, basic initiations for our soul through the spirit path, I started to open up to a lot of complex, more multidimensional perspectives. And I was remembering so much. And I remember I was, for example, I read Dolores Cannon's books, right? These regressions, and I read something which was the information that person was given, or they shared that through their hypnotic state. And I got more information coming from that information, and everything was expanding upon itself. And it was just so much. At that point, I wanted to put everything in a video. I was like, oh, I need to record this. Oh, I need to talk about this. Oh, it was just so much. And in those, I think it was 7 years altogether, I think I made almost 800 videos now. I made more, but those initial ones were deleted because the quality was so bad. But the thing is, it was just so much, right? So that core foundation, that core template for everything I do is the truth. And we have to do earth mastery, which is refine our human presence through these spirit initiations. So that was the first level. And then I went, and that the next stage of the mission was create the template for multidimensional mastery. And that's when I started doing that, right? But that was one essence. At the same time, I was doing vibrational work, and there was things and sounds and singing and all of that coming through. And then I started seeing, wow, I'm actually working with the planet, and I started working with life force. And then the next step, remember, all of a sudden I started talking about life force, and I was shown that next stage is guiding people to become life force infused, because we all live life, so we think naturally we're living, right? Not at that degree of complete illumination coming through you. So the next, and this is where I am now in this completion stage of this life force mastery, is happening now at the galactic level. So that's why now this um, the most recent course I did was this galactic human mastery. So now I'm actually, a lot of things started to wane, and I didn't feel passionate anymore for certain things, but not those things are now no longer a part of my life. I'm just so fast, and I'm here to do many things in the course of one lifetime, multidimensionally, and I'm being drawn to things that come next and next. And I was always like this. I learned something, oh, boring, it's like just put it aside, and next. It was so fast for me, because my soul is so diverse in its multidimensional expression, my being. So what happened then was I just saw how this needs to move even further, and how this becoming all about the body. So I always knew that I'm on the path of guiding people into physical ascension, which is this transcendence of the old ways of your old human template into the complete rebuilding of a new template, which is also the work that happens at the light DNA level, and talking about this, but at the same time, when you look at it from the broader perspective, my mission remains. And that mission is to assist a lot of these volunteer souls, star-born beings who are at least perhaps, I don't know, ascending souls, human souls, so many things now that all are in a way a part of this template, which is that assistance, right? So one of the reasons is the assistance to those who are coming, who are expanding, and one is to build a platform, which is the courses, the work, the videos, the blogs, all of that. And when I'm in the valley stages, this is the time when I also need to refine my own energies, because when this, like I said, this upsurge of light comes, a lot of energy is used for that. And recently, one of the beings, a group of beings from my family of light, they came and they said, well, you're very hyperactive now and I need to rest more. And I said, why? They said, because a new stage is happening. And I said, what's that? They said, we're not to say. Because I was shown that the moment we know things that we're not supposed to know consciously, it's almost like we start to anticipate, and that anticipation makes us act a little unnaturally. So because of this unnatural element, we can't receive from what we're meant to receive in the moment. And that's the reason why sometimes we're not given all the information, or we're not shared all about what we're doing or meant to do, is because it's for our good. And a lot of times we feel as humans we're not loved, our family has abandoned us, they're not listening to us and our pleas and our prayers. No, it's because how loved we are, we always get what we need. But the level of this mastery is an open heart and an understanding for this greater process that's playing out here. So I give you some of my examples. There's so much more, because there's a lot of things that I'm working on constantly that are, like I said, on different levels. And people who come to you, they will come each at the level where they are. Some are maybe more beginner level, some are more advanced. But I remember from the beginning, when I was also shown to do sessions, I always had this feeling, I always want to work with these people, like these volunteer souls, right? I don't want to work people who want to know, basic things, because that's not what I am. I'm not a life coach. I don't do that. I operate through these, through this higher star wisdom in a way. And I wanted to work with people. So when these people started coming through, I knew that was an alignment, because in my heart, you see, we know things already. And I felt I'll be working with these individuals, and somehow it's all coming together in perfect timing. So many simultaneous things happening at the same time. Some of the things we say, well, they're very manual, like doing a web page or writing a book, and they might feel very physical. But remember, these are also divine assignments. The book in itself, if you write a book, if you do a blog, whatever you're doing, it's not that itself that is your mission. It's something or a platform through which you can get that information, or an essence of what you're meant to share, a gift to this planet, how to get it across. So that platform as well has to be chosen specifically through your soul, and it wouldn't resonate to do it the way, I don't know, someone else does it, because if it's not a part of your, how you get that template across, it will, again, won't be natural. So it's the tools that are, used for that, for the missions, they have to be in flow. So if something doesn't resonate, and even if people say, do that, write a book, do this, and you feel like, go with what you feel, because that is your soul's way of choosing a format for that translation of what you're meant to share. So I think that's about everything. There's so much more because, I can go on and on about specific missions I have, but it's not the main basis of this course and this galactic update for all of you. So I wish to thank you for staying tuned and for listening and for getting a little convoluted with me today. It's really nothing complicated, because those of you who know that, you already understand. And again, this is not something we are mentally convincing ourselves into. This is something that's just naturally coming through us as we are. And the more advanced souls, they're taking on sometimes a lot of responsibilities on many levels. So I've explained to you in my life, sometimes it's challenging because I do so much vibrational work with the planet, with the life infusion, that sometimes I'm too tired to do something else. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put these posts up there, videos, and I do so much. And sometimes I'm just like, oh gosh, how do I do it all? Because it has to be balanced, so that something that is needed in the moment is more perhaps dominant or needed than something else. You would have to make that sacrifice, but it's not really a sacrifice. It's an adjustment. It's something that will be more needed, that requires your body to be here and do that. That will be chosen first. So go with that. Go with the natural feeling of what is required more. So sometimes you might feel, oh, I'm going to do that and I need to do that, but the heart says, ooh, but I will do that first, or I really wish to do that. So that is the multidimensional way, is to know that it's all just following. It's like adding up on top, but it's going like this. It's going in a beautiful spiral. It's not like straightforward linear way. So I hope this helped you, and to build your multidimensional platforms, because it's so much. And again, you will know when something is complete, when an assignment within the mission is complete, because it will just be a closed chapter. But at the same time, you never close it, because energetically we're meant to build that template, so you don't walk away from it. This is not about closing life chapters. This is about creating platforms and templates, and then leaving them to go, and they become, because they become organic, they have the life sustenance which you imbued within them. You infuse it with that. So you don't have to so much tend to this and this all the time. You go this way and do that. So it's a naturally self propulsion mechanism now that you've created as this template, and you give it, you surrender it to the higher force, and you trust that. So sometimes things come back from something perhaps you've done before, and it's a simultaneous multidimensional process. I hope this assisted you in that way. There's other free courses available here, and the courses that are available on my webpage, from self-mastery, multidimensional mastery, to so much more, and a few audiobooks that are meant as a template for a lot of my spirit-based automatic writings that are just predecessors to the books that are meant to follow in their own timing. So thank you for watching, and so many blessings. As always, love, wisdom, and power to you all.